Hello, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back for another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast. Sorry, we had a little bit of a break here. I was on location for a state volleyball tournament last week, had to leave on Wednesday, kind of forgot about that, and just didn't quite have time to get the other episodes in last week. So sorry about that, but we're back here to talk about the game on Saturday, what's ahead for this team, some recent recruiting wins, some basketball, some of the good things happening out there. So we'll get to all that. Before we do, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure that you get in the comments section. Danny, how are you doing on this Monday morning, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Obviously upset about Saturday and my Patriots lost, but I can't believe your Packers lost to the Bears. That surprised me because the Bears are awful. But anyway,
But they
not
didn't.
to.
They beat the Bears, though.
I thought they were losing to the. I thought they lost the Bears.
No, they. I thought they did too because I turned the game off and because I was so mad I wasn't going to watch them lose to the Bears. But the Bears had the old game-winning field goal blocked. So yeah, the
Oh,
Packers
okay.
won. It was
Oh,
pretty
all
funny.
right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Drake May looked pretty good though. So that's at least a positive for the Patriots, I think.
Yeah, we couldn't cover Puka Nakua or Cooper Cup. Not that that's an easy task anyway, but I mean, they were just playing Madden, and our defensive backs had sand in their cleats, so it made for a rough day. But I mean, we kept it close. So I mean, it seems like close victories are the tally of my favorite football teams, or moral victories rather. So I mean, it just added to the weekend. I tell you, between covering Nebraska and my Patriots over the last couple seasons, I don't know like why I just don't go pursue a new career.
Or why? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. Sometimes I wonder why I'm a sports fan. I do ask myself that sometimes, but like, why couldn't I just like symphony orchestra or something? I mean, they probably. I mean, maybe if you're a fan of that, maybe you get let down, like they don't have as good a performance as you think. But probably, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's less high stakes every week. It's people. I talk about that all the time. Like your happiness depends on these people that don't know you and don't know them. So it's kind of crazy, but I guess that's why it's fanatic or fanatical because we're all fanatics about this team or whatever. So let's talk about the game on Saturday. And honestly, I'm not gonna be that negative because I thought there was some good things. It's just the same. It's just a pattern, the same pattern that emerges. I just feel like it's like this program is just Groundhog Day. There's some positive things. The defense did do some good things. At least they made some impact plays, which the offense just still seems incapable of doing. 13 points. With Dana Holgerson, I did think that it looked better. I thought the operation looked better. I liked
Yeah,
some of the concepts. I think it gives me hope that this week it will look even better.
yeah,
Um, but the results, were basically the same, 13 points. And I think the biggest, my biggest gripe with this team again is like there was that play after they forced the fumble and it was
mhm,
what 21-17. I mean, you
mhm,
have to take the lead there. You just have to, and they can't. It's like and they do it over and over again. It's like the Ohio State game. I mean, they have they Tommy or not even Tommy, Malcolm Hartsock gets them the interception, gives them the ball at the 5, and they can't get it in. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems like even with Holgerson, same thing, different results. And the defense obviously struggled, but I don't know what were your thoughts and where did this team go from here?
I did see some kind of new nuances in Dana Holgerson's offense. I liked the fact that he seemed to have shorter passing concepts in terms of routes, and I think quite honestly that benefits Dylan Raiola a little bit more. I like the fact that he seemed to be able to you know get get wide receivers the ball in open space and try to make things work. But the same thing appeared in last game as it did on Saturday, and that's that Raiola is struggling to see the field right now. I mean, he's struggling to see the field. There was a play where Jamal Banks was wide open up the left sideline, I believe it was. He would have gone in for a touchdown, and it was just missed. So I do think Raiola's vision needs to be better. It should be better, but I like the play design. I thought it was a little more creative. I thought Holgerson did a good job of balancing people. Some people thought that Nebraska would just revert back to completely passing the football, but he ran the ball as well, and um, I thought Emmett Johnson did a good job. He should be the starting running back over the final 2 games here. Not that Dowdell did a bad job, but I think Johnson adds a little bit more. And to me, the defense is still extremely concerning. Malcolm Hartzog, he's made some good plays. He's had, I think, 2 interceptions on the year, but he just keeps getting beaten coverage. And, the defense, for some reason, can't stop the run. So I think teams are beginning to figure out the 3-3-5. And so that raises questions to me about the entire defensive scheme. And then, like we were talking off air earlier, are some of the best younger players, just not specifically Saturday, but just in general, they can't seem to get on the field. So that leads to, in my opinion, depth problems to where Nash and Ty are so tired. They aren't as effective as they once were, and it's just a mess on the defensive side of football. And offense, they at least to me showed promising signs on Saturday, but I don't know about this defense moving forward.
Muted. The defense just forgot to unmute my mic there, so that was pulled to Nebraska. That's why I'm gonna say every time I make a mistake, I'm just gonna say I pulled to Nebraska. No, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be so jaded about this team, but yeah, the defense. I don't know if they figured out the 3-3-5. I do think it's a depth issue. This team does not have adequate depth anywhere. Really. I mean, on the defensive side of the ball, and I mean, you talk about the defensive. I mean, Nash Hutmaker's 320 or 30 pounds. And they're trying to make him play almost every snap. It's too much. And, I said that about Ty Robinson too. And, it's just, the other guys, I understand what people are saying about, in some ways, about like the Frost era and stuff. And I get that. And I'm not saying that, Scott Frost left Matt Rule a team that was like ready to win a national championship. But I do believe that any reasonably good coach would coach this team to consecutive winning seasons. If we had PJ Fleck in here, Nebraska wins 7 games last year. They win 7 games already this year. I mean, any competent coach, because coaching is a couple things, right? Like if you're a good coach, and I don't care if this is a position coach, a head coach, a coordinator, whatever. If you're a good coach, you make the players around you better right away. That's what you do. That's the job that you have. Okay. Like I coached middle school sports, I didn't get to choose who my players were. High school coaches don't choose who their players are. They just make them better. And the same coaches in high school win a lot. You know why? Because they're good coaches. And whatever they get, if they get a bad player, they make him okay. If they get an okay player, they make him above average. If they get an above average player, they make him a good player. And that is not happening right now in Nebraska under Matt Rule. And show me, and if you think it is, show me an example of it, because I don't see it. I mean, some of those players got better. Bryce Penner,
James
some
Williams.
of them. James Williams. Yeah. There are examples of it, but there's not enough of them. And he's disappeared. Where's he been at? They had 1 sack on Saturday. They had 1 sack from Ty Robinson on that forced fumble, and that was it. So, I just feel like things did improve, but they haven't improved enough. And so the other thing too, that component is, when we're talking about, this is 2 years, he has players that are now sophomores that he recruited, so I understand, people are saying, oh, he's got to get his time to get his own guys. Like, this guy you don't get 4 years, man. That's not the way the business works. And beyond that, regardless of the baseline talent of the players that you have, you should be able to make them better. And it's just, it did happen to a point last year, but I also feel like maybe, you look at the teams we beat this year in the Big Ten, Purdue and Rutgers, they're 2 of the worst teams, we haven't beat a competent, outside of Colorado, we haven't beat really a competent team all year. And so every time we come up against somebody that is, fairly talented or competent, we fall short. And, that's 2 years in a row now. That's the other thing about well-coached teams, is they tend to get better as the season goes on. You know what I mean? For the most part, during Bill Belichick's heyday, the Patriots got bad. They were a different team in November than they were in September. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's not happening here either. This team is not better than it was. It's gotten worse. And, I don't know, maybe that has to do with the schedule. And so, we're looking at it differently.
The schedule did get a lot tougher over the final stretch here. I will say that. I think maybe we were a little bit fooled by the beginning of the schedule, because the beginning of the schedule was really, really easy. But, so I do think that plays a part in it. But I do also see your point about the regression. When you take a look at some of these players, Raiola, for example, Fedoni, I don't care if that offense, they love the outside wide receivers, but you got to throw to the tight end. And Fedoni had a good game against Indiana. He had a good game, I believe it was last week, not the USC game, but the game before that. But other than that, he's been up and down this year. I mean, I just feel like this offensive unit is like you said, they kind of have no playmakers right now.
Yeah, it is kind of disappointing in that sense, and they don't. Yeah, that really stood out to me though on Saturday, and that's when you're in those situations, man, when it's like third and goal or whatever, like, that's when Ohio State throws it to Jeremiah Smith and he comes up with a big play. You know what I mean? Like that's when you go to your money players, and Nebraska just doesn't have that. And it's, and that's not even being that critical of Dylan Raiola. That's a lot to expect of him to come in here and be that guy right away. And that's like what Nebraska's asking him to do, is like carry this offense. And I not mean like they're asking him to throw a bunch or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we got mediocre receivers. We have an offensive line that, is average. We have average running backs. Like, there's only one guy on this team that has that kind of that extra factor, and it's Raiola. And it's tough on him right now. And so, like he does have it in him, like that throw he made to Jalen Lloyd on that last drive. I mean, that was an incredible throw. That was an incredible catch, which made me be like, why isn't Jalen Lloyd getting more opportunities too? And I just do not understand the Malachi Coleman situation. And look, if it was only him, if it was only Malachi, and that happened to, like, that would be a different scenario. But like the fact that like Riley Van Poppel, like, where is this guy? We have no depth. And Matt Rule's like, he can be Ty Robinson next year. Well, they could use another Ty Robinson right now, I guarantee you, because USC just gashed you for 187 yards rushing. So if you've got another Ty Robinson quality player, his ass should be on the field, not on the bench, because you want to redshirt him. That doesn't make sense to me. And then with Coleman, I don't know if you caught this, but Matt Rule said he was like the scout team player of the week a couple of weeks ago. So either like they're blowing smoke about that, or he's actually like doing good things. And if he's doing good things in practice, why in God's name is he not on the field? Because Jamal Banks cannot get open. Isaiah Nair, these guys cannot get open and make plays. They are just average Joes. Nebraska's entire offense is filled with average Joes. And we've got a top 70 overall recruit who has unbelievable skill set that these other guys do not have. And he cannot get on the field. And to me, that is a screaming indictment of this coaching staff. And Matt Rule even said it. Do you remember when Matt Rule, when he was here and he was recruiting, and I think it was the second offseason, and he was talking, about some of these camp evaluations, and he was saying if a guy can run this fast and he can do this high jump, if I can't get him to play football, then I'm not a very good football coach. Well, I don't know, man. If you can't find a way to get Malachi Coleman out there, and like I said, if it was one person, and it's with injuries and yada yada, but there's a lot of examples. Carter Nelson, where is Carter Nelson? I mean, he caught a touchdown pass, and I don't care if he's not. I understand that maybe there's some adjustments to 11-man football or whatever, but you know what? You should be able to find out what that man does well, because he does some things well, and find a way to exploit that. And because there's just very few people on this team that can like make a play with the ball in their hands. And I feel like Carter Nelson's one of those guys, and we just don't get him the ball. And so I don't know. Those are some of my frustrations, and maybe those are off point. I don't know, but those are some of the things that I keep coming back to, as to like why I'm really concerned about the future of this program still.
It was asked why is Carter Nelson's red shirt burned, and the answer was that he's played in every game on special teams. So that's an interesting thing right there. But I don't know what the deal is with Nelson. I'm thinking it's more of an injury thing for Coleman than anything, but who knows? Lloyd is definitely the most confusing out of the bunch. I feel like him and Barney on the field at the same time would be a lethal combination. But it makes me wonder too if we kind of overestimated the impact and the value of the transfer portal wide receivers. And I'm hoping that because we have to go to the transfer portal this year, I'm hoping that we can kind of do a better job in it, because the returns haven't been great over the first two seasons. And, I think that's an indictment on this coaching staff as well.
Yeah, and you got to evaluate guys and be able to get good players. And sometimes it is tough to get guys out of the portal. And to be fair, I mean, there are young players that are playing well. Like you said, James Williams is one. I think Willis McGahee, the fourth, Vincent Shavers, Ja'Cory Barney, obviously. Rayola was playing well at the start of the season. I would put Dante Dowdell in that mixture too, because he's a second year. So there are guys that are playing better and they are playing well, but it's like we need to see them start taking that next step though, and that's where we just haven't quite seen that. And yeah, I don't know, maybe we overestimated the talent or of some of these guys, like the Bryce Benherts and the Isaac Giffords and some of those guys.
Isaac Gifford, I severely overestimated.
Yeah, but I mean, part of the reason I did though is because Matt Rule sat up there and said he should be an NFL player. I mean, he said that last year. He was like, "Yeah, Gifford could have went to the, could have got drafted." And so we've got 4 NFL players in Gifford,
Last year,
Benhart.
I think he could have. This year, he's struggled quite a bit, and it's kind of
Yeah.
a microcosm of the entire defense, actually, when you really think about it. I mean, last year, I would have felt
And
comfortable saying
how
Gifford
much
was,
is it? How much is the secondary? I mean,
yeah.
I haven't thought about that, but I don't know. For some reason, that just triggered in my mind. But maybe John Butler hasn't been as good as we thought he was going to be.
Well, he got here in July.
Oh, true. I mean, you're right. That is pretty tough.
I mean, he got here in July when he
But
probably didn't even think he was going to be coaching Nebraska this season. And
so maybe that whole situation though just kind of made a bigger impact than we thought it would.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about it, a little bit, because I'm trying to remember the timeline here really quickly. I think it was
it was like right before fall camp. I think it was like a week or two before fall camp.
Yeah, which I'm not going to go into the Cooper situation, but it was just really, really bad timing, and I think it showed how good a coach Cooper was. But at the same time, I'm not ready to write off Butler yet. I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying in general. But when you have a guy like Malcolm Hartzog trying to cover wide receivers, and he has, let's be honest, a height deficiency, and he leaps as high as he can, and he still can't get the ball. I mean, that's a personnel issue. And it brought me back to the fact that Omar Brown last year was probably more important than we realized.
Yeah, and that was a tough, went right through his hands, man. It's
Yeah.
just like, that was a tough one, and the interference plays were kind of annoying too. But it is what it is. I guess it's just you're not going to get every call, but they got to figure out a way to score in the red zone. So I do know that with this Wisconsin game, look, it's another winnable game, and they just got to get 6 wins. And so hopefully they'll find a way this week. I mean, Wisconsin's on their backup quarterback, they're out their offensive coordinator, but you know what?
We make backup quarterbacks look great.
Well, that's the other thing, and everybody's like, "Oh, offensive." They fired the Phil Longo, the air raid dude. Well, this team does not have the personnel to run the air raid. I mean, I haven't watched them a bunch, but like, if you see what Wisconsin fans say, they're like, "Why do we keep running the air raid when we don't have air raid players?" So they've got some dude, I think, that was like a tight ends coach or something. So you know what you're going to see on Saturday? You're going to see old school Wisconsin. You're going to see a team that runs the ball. I bet you.
Even scarier. Because
yeah,
we can't stop the run.
Yeah, like they're gonna go back to like what has always worked for Wisconsin.
Jonathan
I bet you
Taylor,
I don't
Monty
know.
Ball.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. But if I was Luke Fickell, that's what I would do. Especially after watching UCLA and Indiana. I don't know how in the world we stopped Ohio State running the ball. I mean, that's the crazy thing to me is like this. Like you can't tell me this team doesn't have the ability. Like they've shown it. They've got it. They just, for whatever reason, cannot consistently perform at that level. And I don't know if that's, I mean, it's the fault of the players and the coaches, but it's the coach's job to get the most out of the players, and the staff they're not doing it right now. So, I mean, it's hopefully they'll figure it out and they will I think getting a win here will really help. But, if not, man, if you lose these next 2 games, like Matt Rule's on the hot seat. I don't think that's debatable.
Yeah. I agree. Heading into year 3, yeah, it definitely is.
And that's not where I thought we would be, and it's not where you want to be.
And I guarantee you the next coach is going to end up there pretty soon too as well.
But you never know, man.
Because this program, like people think, like I read all these comments, people think that Nebraska can contend and stuff like that, but this program has a ceiling. And I get in the era of NIL, it's a little bit different, but I still think that the ceiling for 8 or 9 wins is there for Nebraska. I still think, asking them to do more than that, like even like college football playoff like level is tough. And that's a product of the new Big Ten and also, I think where the program is at. I think it's realistic to say that they have a ceiling of 8 or 9 wins, and if they get more than that, then it's an anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, I would say 10 wins. I think in a really good year, this team 10 or 11. I think in the best year, like the best case scenario. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. Like, I think the dream scenario now for this team would be to like somehow win a conference championship, and which is like almost nearly impossible. But yeah, I don't think you would need just like an insanely crazy set of circumstances for Nebraska to ever win or get close to winning a national championship, probably ever again. And that's just is what it is. It's the same as Wisconsin or Iowa. Like this team probably doesn't have much different upside than those programs, but they should still be able to, produce at that level. And I do feel like they can, I feel like Nebraska should be better than those teams. Not like head and shoulders, but like I feel like if you're talking about, if there was a division of Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, and Minnesota, I feel like Nebraska should be winning that division more often than not. So we'll see where it goes, but
Well,
they've
you know
really
what
got
a
to
lot of
figure.
the good college football playoff teams have done? They've opened up their checkbook.
Yeah,
And I don't
and
care if you want to develop and rebuild. Like developing is important, and having that development and high school recruiting is important. But in today's day and age, you need to open up your checkbook.
yeah, and you gotta do it for the right people too. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing is because you can like some teams spent a lot of NIL money, but like Miami was smart with it with Cam Ward. Like
Yeah,
you got to get the right guys in there. You can't just. So I don't know, but yeah, they're gonna need help on, and that's yeah. Like I look at this roster and I'm like, man, there's I don't, the schedule's not as hard maybe as we thought next year, but it's not easy
I'm
either.
gonna take
There's
a
no
look at the
easy games in
schedule.
the Big Ten.
Let
I
me
mean,
take a look.
there's no, I think, now I could be wrong. Maybe I looked at it wrong, but I don't think there's Oregon or Ohio State on there. So Penn State is on there. Michigan's on there,
Eh,
but who knows what Michigan's going to be? I mean, Michigan's right now. I don't think Michigan's that far ahead of Nebraska, honestly, in terms of where they are at as a program.
all right. So the first. Let's
Except
see.
except that Michigan's willing to spend 10 million on one player, so they're going to be spending like Ohio State this offseason. So I mean, I wish Nebraska would do that too.
We do have USC,
Yeah, but
but
that'll be in Lincoln. So I mean, but yeah, that's a tough game.
okay. So Cincinnati at
Like
Arrow
right
at
there.
Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Far from a given.
Akron,
Yeah, probably a win.
Houston Christian,
My God, they better win that one.
Iowa,
Early season 50-50.
Michigan.
And that's going to be in Lincoln, right?
Yep.
Think so. Yeah, I'd say 50-50. I don't know. I don't know what Michigan. I think Michigan's going to look dramatically different. Just depends what their portal hall looks like. But yeah,
Michigan,
winnable for
Michigan
sure.
State. Yeah.
I mean, 50-50 because they got that Aiden Chili's kid that's pretty good, and Jonathan Smith's going to be in his second year. So,
Northwestern,
probably a win, but not a
USC,
guarantee. 50-50
Maryland.
on the road at Maryland.
That's 50-50, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Yeah, probably 50-50.
Minnesota.
I think that'll be at home, so it would hopefully be a win, but they always beat us, so I don't know.
No, that's gonna be in Minnesota.
Oh, is it? Okay. We have to go there twice in a row. That's not fair. Whatever.
Penn State.
Probably a loss.
Yeah, in Penn State, yeah. And
Yeah.
then at UCLA. I don't know if this is the exact order of how the schedule's gonna go, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure if that is the exact order either, but yeah, I mean, we couldn't beat UCLA on our home field, so I don't. When's the last time we went to California and won a game? I don't remember. So I mean, sure, there's a chance, but there's not a lot of like guaranteed wins on that schedule. So
Houston Christian might be the only one. I didn't even know Houston Christian had a team.
I think they're moving up from the FCS rank. I could be wrong, but
Oh, nice.
Anyways, let's talk about something positive here. So, last week, one thing we didn't get to was the fact that Nebraska was able to flip the commitment of Dawson Merritt
Mm.
from Alabama. And Dawson, 6'3", 215, ranked 116th overall in the 2025 class. So, really a truly elite defensive player. I mean, he can be an edge, he can be kind of an off-ball linebacker. He's great against the run, so I think he's a really great fit for this class and for this defense. And this team needs impact players, and this is a guy. When you watch his film, he makes impact
Mhm.
plays. That's what he does. So, what are your thoughts on Dawson Merritt?
I love the pairing of at the linebacker position with him and Christian Jones. I think that really is a really, really strong group of linebackers. And you look at this class, in the defensive line, linebackers, they're loading up on defense. And I love the way Merritt plays. He can rush the passer, he can cover a little bit. He's the type of guy that, offenses have to game plan around. And we don't have enough of those players on defense right now. So I think bringing a guy like Merritt in is important. And I always felt that we kind of missed out on the first go around back in June when he committed to Alabama. I felt very comfortable with where Nebraska was in his recruitment. And now they were able to seal the deal with Merritt and, it kind of help stabilize their defense, hopefully, for years to come.
Yeah, it'll be good to have those guys. I mean, I do always worry about playing freshmen too early. If you have to rely on too many freshmen, but I do think both of those guys have a chance to play early. Especially yeah, Dawson Merritt's just a really dynamic player, even though he's like 116 overall. I still think he's a little actually underrated. So
Yeah, he is.
I think he'll be a really exciting prospect. And then beyond that, some other recruiting stuff. Like there's a lot of buzz about them potentially flipping Cortez Mills. And I think maybe we saw him kind of process Bryson Hayes. So I don't know, maybe watch out for a Cortez Mills visit this weekend. I mean, that would be another thing. They need guys like that. They need more dynamic playmakers on the offensive side of the ball.
And I've heard things aren't necessarily done with Michael Terry either. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
see. We'll see what happens. They're gonna need to open up the checkbook, and if they do that, then I think they'll be able to kind of help this program progress to where it needs to be. Because I think now you can't sell a winning program. Now you need to sell money, and even the winning program sell money. I mean,
Yeah.
Cam Ward got a crazy amount of money to be the quarterback of Miami. He left the NFL draft. He was thinking about entering, and he didn't. And Miami got him to come back and paid him a lot of money, and they've been able to have a successful season. So I think more than just player development and promises of winning on the field, you're going to need to pony up in addition to that. And hopefully, with Troy Dannon at the helm now, and being more receptive to NIL, Nebraska will be able to pony up.
Yeah, because I think you just look at the way that Michigan was like, we're not going to do that stuff, and we're about the transformational experience, and now they've seen the results of what happens when you don't have a magician as your head coach, right? And so
I
now
feel
that
like Nebraska is the same way too in that regard.
yeah, but Michigan right now is paying, like they're will like this one dude they're willing to pay $10 million, this Bryce Underwood. So like they're going to start paying out the wazoo. So Nebraska needs to do the same. Like I'd be like Michael Terry, blank check. Cortez Mills, blank check. I mean, you can't only do that to a point though, because then you can't really pay. That's the problem. You can't really pay guys more than like Dylan Raiola's getting paid. So that's where you run into issues where it's kind of like a salary cap deal almost. But I don't know. They need to get some more talent though, because like when you look at this offense, there's not a single player on the field, that I mean, at the skill positions at wide receiver, who's regularly playing right now at wide receiver, tight end, or running back that like opposing defenses are scared that the guy has the ball. I mean, except outside of like Ja'Cory Barney, that's probably it. He's the only
Maybe
guy.
Emmett, but that's it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's probably yeah. I mean, that's true. But like, there's very few guys on like the Nebraska, offense that are keeping defensive coordinators up at night. And you need some of those guys. You just do. And Nebraska just, like I said, they have a bunch of average Joes, and they've got to figure that out. They've got to get that changed, and or at least if they want to play the way they're trying to play with Raiola, right? Because you can't be this like, we're only going to run a little bit and then pass offense without having a running quarterback. If you don't have guys that can get open, like if you take the run pass option out of your playbook, that does make it a little bit tougher. And so I don't know. We'll see if they adjust that, or or how it works out. But hopefully, Holgerson, has some stuff this week, because if they could just win, this one game, that would solve a lot of problems right now within this program.
And, they're kind of in a tough spot at quarterback, because I've seen people say, start Heinrich Harburg and defenses will be surprised. No, they won't.
No.
They won't be surprised.
Have you seen when every time Harburg's tried to play this year, it's been an unmitigated disaster. I mean, he has not, like, every time they've tried to use him in a special package, like in a run play, gets stuffed right immediately, because they know what he's going to do. He can't throw.
Yeah, and people were like, "Oh, he could bring the element of surprise." Not only has he gotten stuff this year, but teams have 10 games from last year to see what he could do. They have film from last year to see what he could do. So I get the sentiment, bringing a running quarterback, and I don't hate the kid. I know I just made it sound like I hate the kid, but he's not going to bring anything to the game.
No, and it's like I mean, I don't think it's I think it's legitimate to question, like, hey, should Raiola be still playing right now? I mean, because look, if it was anybody else, if his name was not Raiola, if there was any other quarterback that over their last 5 games had thrown 2 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, you would be having that conversation. The reason Nebraska's
The problem is we
not,
don't have a quarterback that can.
well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, the reason Nebraska's not is there is nobody else. There is nobody else. They have nobody. There's not a single. Don't sit here and tell me Jalen Gramstad's going to come in here and win this game. That addition was worthless, and I said it at the time. Why? Who cares? Like, it's just not, the guy brings nothing to the table. All he's done this year. Like, if that man has taken a single practice rep this year over Daniel Kalen, he should not have been on the freaking team. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he probably has. And it's just
I am worried of,
mind-boggling.
like, I am kind of wondering about what Daniel Kaling can do, not to put him as a starter in the game, but just in general, because he looked okay during the spring game, but beyond that, I'm kind of wondering.
I just hope he's gotten all the reps this year, because he's the one that needs them. And if we're wasting him on Harburg and Gramstad, like, what are we doing? And hopefully they're not, but probably are. I just have no, the staff does a lot of weird things. So, any rate, but I do think, there could be some good things coming with recruiting. But, again, that stuff's going to feel kind of hollow if they don't, if they finish 5-7. So hopefully that does not happen. But okay, we're going to call this bouncy balls, because we're going to talk about the balls that you can bounce with basketball and volleyball. I don't know. That maybe wasn't the best idea, but whatever.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. So at any rate, with volleyball, it was another good weekend as they swept. Well, no, they didn't sweep. They had a 3-1 win over Minnesota, and then they swept Indiana. So 16-0 now. They still have 4 matches to play in the Big Ten, kind of the Big Ten race. So Penn State is the other kind of team that's in contention for it, but definitely looks like a national championship caliber team. But not. It's been a bit of a disappointment for the men's basketball team. The women's basketball team, they really haven't played anybody that great. So I mean, they've dominated, and Britt Prince, looked really good on Saturday. I think she had 23 points, was like 10 or 13 shooting, hit a few threes, and like the highlight. Go watch her highlight tape from Saturday. It's really fun. So I think she's going to be good. But yeah, a bit of a disappointing performance from the men's team. They're just kind of having trouble finding their way a little bit.
Yeah, and then St. Mary's is a good team, but at the same time, they beat St. Mary's last year, I believe. So, I mean, there are a lot of new pieces, and there are a lot of, they don't really seem to have that 3-point shooting threat yet, or that hasn't developed within the offense yet. But, I mean, we'll see. They won their first couple, lost yesterday. So, I mean, this is why they have the easier games to start the season to try to help figure everything out. But they look disjointed at times, and especially in the closing minutes of some of these games, they've looked kind of unorganized. So let's hope that gets cleaned up.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of similar themes that they had last year. When they're turning the ball over too much, they're not they're giving up too many offensive rebounds, and so far this season they're not making enough threes, and so that's been, I think. They came into Sunday shooting 24% from 3. They shot 29%. I mean, they did do a little bit better. They made a few more, but the 3-point shooting, like, they've got to get that going. And I don't know. I mean, Asijian's been okay, but Gavin Griffiths really hasn't made a huge impact yet. But I don't know. I'm not super worried about the shooting yet. I liked what I saw from Andrew Morgan yesterday. Raleigh Wooster, I thought, had some good moments, but it's just and I think maybe some of this will, like, the turnovers will, kind of subside a little bit, because these guys are still really learning how to play with each other, right?
Well, I feel
So
like
I think,
last year you had more like returning players and veterans and things like that. Where this year, aside from like Gary and Bryce Williams, it's completely flipped.
yes, and that's part of the reason I think some of the turnover issues will kind of hopefully reduce themselves because it's if you're turning the ball over 15 times a game, it's hard to win. It just is, and they gave it away 15 times yesterday, and St. Mary's turned that into 23 points.
Mm.
And if you lose that battle and you give up more offensive rebounds, and the other team makes like I can't remember how many, but 5 or 6 more 3-pointers than you, you're probably not going to win. I mean, that's just the way the game is played anymore. If you don't win if you don't win that 3-point battle, like you have to win the rebounding battle, and you've got to get the turnover battle in there because
Mm.
if most of your field, and Nebraska's doing a good job of getting to the free throw line, and that's kind of been their saving grace this year, and so that's a pretty sustainable thing. I don't think we're going to be sitting here in. I'd be really surprised, I should say, if we're sitting here in February and this team's still shooting 29% from or whatever,
Yeah.
26% from three. Like they're not that bad. It just for whatever reason there's been like a lid on the hoop because I mean like Segan, Griffiths, like Williams, Gary, these guys are all good shooters. I mean Raleigh Wooster doesn't have quite the 3-point percentage. But I mean, I don't think he's going to be jacking up a bunch of them.
No.
Andrew Morgan's been a good shooter. I think Berkey can be a pretty good shooter,
Yeah.
so like keeping all that in mind, the fact that they're shooting so poorly right now, once that shooting gets corrected with the fact that they're getting to the free throw line, if they can just, keep take care of the ball a little bit better and rebound better, I don't think this should be a bad rebounding team. I mean, they've got a lot of size inside. So I do think, these problems are fixable. It's still early in the season. And the one bad thing is like, yeah, the loss, that was a quad 1 win opportunity, but in college basketball, it's not, one loss doesn't really hurt you that bad. So.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about Big Ten play and how many opportunities there are to really kind of make an impact and kind of get those key wins, even if they're later in the season. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for Nebraska to really build their resume.
But yeah, it was a missed opportunity, but it is what it is. This team is still kind of growing together, and yeah. So I think that's all the topics we have to cover today. I guess what's the line for Wisconsin? 2 points for Nebraska. Nebraska's 2-point favorite.
Yeah, this is their favorite, so I don't know what that means, but
I think I read somewhere that Wisconsin has their backup quarterback, a new offensive coordinator, and they've only scored like 1 offensive touchdown in 3 games. So you know what that means, everybody.
means they're going to score 55 points, have 7 touchdowns, and throw for 400 yards.
You know what? My one prediction about this game is it's going to be. I know the Huskers are going to like play their hearts out, and so it's going to be a battle, like it's just going to be a white knuckler. Like it'd be nice if it would be so nice if just for once, like in one of these games, they just like came out and just like dominated like they did against Colorado. They were just like, nope, we're not going to do this again, and just like just smacked Wisconsin around a little bit. And so we didn't have to sit here and like have this like I would just be nice to know that like mid third quarter, like we're going bowling because we're up like 28-3. Although I still wouldn't be celebrating that, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah, just like going bowling or just going bowling in general, I think.
Well, I mean, not that I know I wouldn't trust Nebraska up 28-3 in the third
Oh,
quarter, but I
you like
feel
the
pretty
Atlanta
good
Bucks?
about it.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, I just want to win. I'm kind of wondering, the disconnect between the Colorado game to now is really, really interesting. And, people can
Oh,
criticize Dion all they want, and he is a pain in the ass, but look at where they are now.
I know. And look at where we are now. And maybe some of that is a function of the 2 conferences like that. I mean, I can buy into that a little bit, but
I mean, I definitely can. If we had that schedule, we would be a whole hell of a lot better.
well, true, yeah, because we've had to play
Yeah,
Ohio State and Indiana, which ended up not being an easy game. So,
good for them. Good
but
for Indiana.
yeah, for sure. Hopefully, that would be hilarious if they beat Ohio. That I would just laugh
Kurt
if
Signetti
they
got a nice new
Kurt
contract
Signetti.
too.
Well, that was smart too, yeah,
Yeah.
because people are going to start calling for him pretty soon, and they probably still. I don't know if that'll keep him there, but it'll make the fan base feel better about it. But
I mean, if
in like
Indiana needs a lesson on buyouts, they can definitely give Nebraska a call.
but in like 2 years or something, if like Georgia or somebody's like calling Kurt Signetti, he's not sticking with Bloomington,
No,
but he will for a while. So
no.
we'll see though. I mean, they're probably in the playoff as long as they just win one more game. If they're 11-1, they're definitely making it, especially if their one losses to Ohio State. So
Yeah. Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And that would certainly be. This is why the playoff was created here, to see teams like Indiana, have success and get their shot.
So hopefully someday we'll get our shot, but I just want to get to the Gator Boca Raton whatever bowl this year. So hopefully that will be our fate and not another 5-7 season. But at any rate, we'll look ahead to what happens sometime. Probably Thursday we'll come out with our normal preview episode, and then we'll try to get the Saturday chat going on Saturday. So thanks everybody that supports the channel. Please, if you haven't, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.